Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the New Jersey governor's race and a brand new poll out today from Quinnipiac University that is telling us that Mikey Sherrill leads Jack Ciattarelli by a margin of roughly 8 percentage points across this state in an expanding lead in a state that Democrats have looked to with potential caution ahead of 2025, knowing that New Jersey has been quite pesky for them over the past few cycles. For a bit of context, back in 2021, Democrats won the governor's race in New Jersey, but not by a lot. They defeated the now Republican nominee for governor and then also the Republican nominee for governor, Jack Ciattarelli, by a margin of 3.2%, with incumbent Governor Phil Murphy having all of that to his advantage. Now, the 2021 race went completely under the radar. Nobody talked about it before the election. Virginia was the primary focus, and arguably rightfully so. Glenn Youngkin took a state that Biden won by double digits, and a year later flipped it to the Republican Party against the former Democratic governor. But in the New Jersey governor's race, this was a bit of a sleeper. Ciattarelli almost won the race. It was 3.5 points that separated the two, and had the election been slightly more conservative, we might have had a Republican running for re-election rather than a Democratic congresswoman running in its place. And so thinking about New Jersey and the 2025 race, and what this most recent data point really tells us is that Democrats are probably going to hold on to New Jersey by a pretty comfortable margin ahead of 2025. There was a lot of speculation very early on that New Jersey would be a very competitive state, and for a while it looked like New Jersey actually would be quite competitive. Virginia had that, and it came and went early on in its race, but New Jersey has always been the one that we have looked at from the 24 cycle with a bit of caution, as I said earlier on in this video, but also in a way some optimism there for the GOP. Kamala Harris only won New Jersey by roughly 6 points against Donald Trump. This comes after two back-to-back elections of Democrats winning the state by over 15 points. Hillary Clinton won it by 16, as did Joe Biden. And so to see the state go with a 10-point shift to the right is jarring, I think, for a lot of Democrats, especially ahead of governor's race that tends to lean more conservative than the rest of the state does on a more national level. Now, what we do know is that there was a coinciding Senate race where incumbent Representative, now Senator Andy Kim, won by about 10 points. And so the Republican percentage here did not translate in every election, but rather the one that included Donald Trump. But in a way, that should make Democrats a bit fearful about what 2025 might bring. But based off the most recent data points in New Jersey, it looks more and more likely that Democrats are in a better position when it comes down to this race. Mikey Sherrill has the benefit of having a lean D characterization across the race, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that it moves over to becoming a likely Democratic characterization as we get closer to the election. Now, it's not a guarantee that Mikey Sherrill wins this race easily. It could very well be a bit of a shock again and narrow up even more. But thinking about the circumstances of the year, a lot would have to go right for Jack Ciattarelli to overcome, even in comparison to 2021, when the national environment was conducive to a Republican victory in New Jersey. It was Republicans who won the governorship in 2009 when Obama had won the state by 20 points in 2008. It was Republicans who won by a landslide in 2013 when Obama won the state previously by over 15 points. And so in 2021, when Biden's approval rating was down nationally, Virginia was going to the Republican Party, New Jersey still didn't budge, and not much is making the case that it will in 2025. But not to mention that the data has just gotten better for Mikey Sherrill. The data early on, yes, was quite good, but as it started to tighten up, we started to see some hesitancy from the Democrats in considering this race to be locked in and solid. But Quinnipiac University is actually one of the better pollsters that does New Jersey races and many other races across the country. We often look at them not necessarily as the gold standard, but certainly as an organization that really does understand. A polling group that certainly does understand the dynamics of the race and the state of the race as they describe it to us, and I'm not really shocked by their findings. They're showing here a likely voter screen, which tends to lean a little bit more to the left than the registered voter screen, which is a huge change from 4 years ago or 8 years ago. But the lead here for Mikey Sherrill really does look quite good. In two different sets of the polls, you're going to find that the first one, just general basis here, is that she leads by roughly 8. Then when it comes down to a head-to-head, when you remove the third-party candidates, the lead expands to 9. And so that's really what we're working with here, an 8 to 9 point advantage, and it's roughly on average with what we see. Real Clear Politics has Sherrill up by 9, Race to the White House has her up by 8. The average here has Mikey Sherrill leading by roughly 8.5 points. And so thinking about this lead here, and thinking about what's contributing to it too, is that Donald Trump's approval rating is starting to really shake even further. His approval rating on the economy today, most recent survey, shows Donald Trump with the lowest approval rating we've seen on the economy since 2017, even amidst the global pandemic of 2020, amidst all of the social unrest during the same year, even times in the 3 years leading up to the pandemic, where we saw the economy, Donald Trump being, the subject of a lot of negative press on the economy. Today, it stands at a worse place than where it was in the past 10 years. And that's not great for Donald Trump, very obviously, but it's even worse for the Republicans who actually have to face the electoral repercussions and ramifications of Donald Trump being an unpopular president. And this race is no different. This race was winnable for Republicans in the very beginning. It certainly was a race that might have been able to really throw every bit of punditry on its side and really question what we understand about races when they come down to a more individual and unique level like this one, where there aren't national stakes at hand. If Mikey Sherrill wins the governorship or not, there's not a power of balance that voters are weighing. It is strictly just who do you believe is best at governing your state. And as a state that seems largely unhappy with Governor Phil Murphy in terms of approval, it's not bad necessarily for a swing state governor, but for a blue state governor, it's not great. Mikey Sherrill is winning this race, and she's doing so as a candidate, but Donald Trump's baggage is really doing damage to Jack Ciattarelli. Not all of it is attributed there. Mikey Sherrill is running a phenomenal campaign, and I do think really is speaking to a lot of those middle-of-the-road voters, which is why she did so well in the primary and now is doing so well in the general election. But like I talked about earlier today, similar to New York, nearly identical shifts, and in nearly the identical same areas, the outskirts of New York City and New York City, where you saw those shifts from one election to the other. Looking at 2026 and looking at 2025, the data has been quite consistent. A lot of those base groups that Democrats have relied on for decades for support in these states started to leave them in 2024. But now they are starting to come back. And in New Jersey, an 8-point victory is still underperforming Kamala Harris and is still underperforming Joe Biden, but that can't be lost in the moment that the New Jersey governor's race was always one that Republicans were going to be far more able to contest. And that actually is in line with standard practice, not only in New Jersey. I told you about in years past, if you look back to 2009, it was New Jersey that went to Chris Christie by 4 points. In 2005, it went to the Democrats by 10. In 2013, it went to the Republicans by roughly 22 points. And then it was 2017 when Clinton won the state by over 15 and Biden would go on to win it by even more. But New Jersey still only went to Phil Murphy against the lieutenant governor, to Chris Christie, who had an approval rating of 6% at the time, still only won by 14.1. The governor's races in New Jersey and in many other parts of this country are far closer than they are on the presidential level, and that's because, again, these are more localized, more individual, and more unique. That gives voters flexibility. That's why a state like Oklahoma voted for Kevin Stitt by 13.2%, 13.7% against Joy Hoffmeister, not because they love Democrats, and not because it's a swing state, and not because Kamala Harris lost this state by 14. She lost it by 33, but Democrats only lost it by 13 in 2022 because the Democrat was good for the moment, and the Republican was not. And so that very much could have been the case in 2025. The Mikey Sherrill, swap her out with someone else, could have been the bad Democrat. And Jack Ciattarelli could have been the good Republican to win this race. But that's not what we're seeing. That's not what we're finding in New Jersey. And there's reason for that because Democrats are running a strong campaign. And Mikey Sherrill is the reason that they are at this point. And Donald Trump really is not helping Ciattarelli. Because if it was a second term of Biden or a term of Kamala Harris, maybe this race would look differently, and maybe the candidates would be entirely different. Maybe what people were looking for and are looking for in the primary could be radically different. But as it stands right now, it doesn't look great for the GOP, and it doesn't look like they are making improvements. A lot of you guys have been asking for updates on this race, and I completely understand why. New Jersey is a very important state for a lot of reasons, because if Republicans were able to win it, it would show a continuation of this region in the country specifically that saw massive gains towards the right, continuing that energy into the midterms. But we probably aren't going to see it. And as we start to find more and more data, as it's released, as it's understood, as it's digested, all of these Republican and Democratic talking points will be put to the test this coming November. And what we are finding is that this race that could have been, heavy on the could have been more competitive, is quickly finding itself to being less and less competitive as the days go on, and Democrats in a much better position as it continues to. And so Mikey Sherrill, as it stands today, has a very good shot at winning the governor's election in the state of New Jersey against Jack Ciattarelli, and those numbers are only going to increase in terms of likeliness of happening. And so thinking about the governor's race, thinking about what we might be able to expect in New Jersey this coming fall, is Democrats doing potentially even better than what the most recent surveys are saying. because that's what we've seen as of late. Consistent overperformances, save 2 elections in this year for Democrats in specials, and this regular election in New Jersey might not be any different. And although this race has been remarkably closer than it should have been under regular circumstances, New Jersey actually has surprised us before, but this time, I think we're going to be pretty comfortable in saying that Mikey Sherrill is the favorite. Not a guarantee, but certainly is in a position where you'd rather be her than Jack Ciattarelli, and based off the dynamics of the race right now, it is Democrats who have the undeniable upper hand. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2025 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.